Greetings, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Dreamscapes. Today, we have our guest dreamer, Massimo Brigatti. He is a high-performance coach, public speaker, and the author of Flavors of Confidence, Sober Method. You can find him at sobermethod.com and at Sober Method across all the socials and the whatnots and the hey. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. You can see I don't always have an episode each week. And that's okay. Dreams come in their own time, but I want to hear from you. You don't have to be an author. You don't have to be selling anything or be anyone of prominence. You just have to be a human who speaks English and has a dream to share, because that's the best I can do. I can't speak any other language. Where do I go from there usually? Oh, I do video game streams Monday through Friday, most weeks, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific. Currently playing Deathloop. It's a game that where the whole day starts over again in the morning. Fantastic concept, very complicated, and I think I know why the game didn't do very well. This is apropos of nothing. I'm just going to stop right there. This episode brought to you in part by ABC Book 10, The Witch's Dream Book, a kind of charming pop culture-ish book of the time in 1885, tapping into the kind of the zeitgeisty fascination with the occult and spiritualism and all that good kind of stuff. So you would find this on the rack with right next to the Penny Dreadful novels, those kind of things. Long story short on that, of course, you can find all this and more at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, including downloadable MP3 versions of this very podcast. So if you just want to take the wizard with you wherever you wander, with or without Wi-Fi, you can download that and keep it on your phone and play it at the gym, etc. Although everywhere's got Wi-Fi now. Even people driving in the car just use their phone data. It is what it is. And last but not least, if you would head on over to benjaminthedreamwizard.locals.com, it's free to join. It's attached to my Rumble account. You can give me money or not, but it's also a great place to reach out to me if you have a dream to share. And that is more than enough out of me. Massimo, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time.
Hey, thank you for having me, Benjamin. I think we're going to have a good time here today.
Me too. Yeah, we already talked for like 20 minutes off air, just because I asked people, what do you do and what do you want to talk about and what are your links so I can write, I write all this stuff down because my memory is just Swiss cheese. That's the great thing about a Swiss cheese brain. You lose everything in there, but you find all kinds of crazy shit you never knew was in there. So to take the good with the bad.
Absolutely, because you get to go down a little hole in a nook and cranny, and then you find a thought. Oh, wait a second, this is interesting, right?
Absolutely. And then there's another one, and there's a side tunnel. It's like, how did that even get connected over there? But I don't know where you want to start. I mean, we can start with your book. I guess that's probably the best one. How did that come about? What is it about, etc.?
Sure. So I spent most of my adult life being an addict of both alcohol and drugs. So
good times.
Yeah, I mean,
sometimes,
back,
yes.
Yeah.
Except for all the negative shit.
Yeah. Except for the bad things that happened, it was great.
No one does drugs because they're not fun. They just don't like it, right?
That is so true. That's so true. So, I randomly met somebody on a beach in Florida in 2014, Samantha Thomas, and within the first 20 minutes of spending time with her, she said, you don't have to be drunk to be amazing. And I was like, who the hell do you think you are? I just met you, right?
Yeah.
But that started a long relationship, which unfortunately ended in her death at the hands of a drunk driver in 2020, but not before she had helped me get sober. And as soon as she passed, I took it upon myself to share what had helped me remain sober, which was the Flavors of Confidence Sober Method, which I created myself. And SOBER stands for Stoic, Observe, Behavior, Execute, and Restore. And it's a 5-step system that works on the Deming cycle. So you're working to continuously improve yourself. Because I had the crazy idea that I could look at myself like a manufacturing plant and I could slowly make myself better, iteration after iteration until I felt like I was fully confident. That's me in a nutshell as far as what got me to this point and doing what I do. It's been a wild journey, though. I've been a lifelong entrepreneur and worked in many industries, from entertainment to banking to telecom to, you name it, just about anything, manufacturing, and somehow I'm here now.
Very cool. So I was writing those down too. It was stoic, observe, behavior,
execute, and restore.
Gotcha. Yeah, I wrote those. That is great. And it's nice. I mean, if you're going to provide something to other people and some explanatory method, acronyms are great. It's that wonderful type of thing where it's like, okay, if I keep this in mind and then I can kind of nail these things, and especially when it gives you a process to follow and a recursive process that, you return to previous steps sometimes, or once you've hit the bottom, you do it again for a different subject, or you apply it again. And the idea of iterative improvement over time, where you just, and that involves a lot of other things that have been said, psychologically on this stuff for 40, 50, whatever years. The idea of, one day at a time, one problem at a time. And, because it's easy to get overwhelmed. I got to do 1,000 things. Okay, do one. Now you got 999. Hey, the journey of 1,000 steps, they say. It's so much great stuff. And what also popped into my head too is you met a wizard in the wilderness. That's the when the hero is in a place, when the student is ready, the master appears. That kind of thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it is. And even if you don't think you're ready, or sometimes they just plant a seed, and then you go, a few years later, you go, I remember that person. And they were right. And this situation I'm in right now is exactly what they were talking about. And it hits you. So yeah, it isn't always very obvious. And, I love metaphors. Like, I'm just some crazy person on the internet who thinks he's a wizard, but I actually do believe that, or at least in training. When I hit 1,000 episodes, I'll be a real wizard. But 1,000 interpretations, or the Japanese would say 10,000 repetitions. I don't think I'm going to get that before I die. I've only got 195 over 5 years, so we're not going fast enough for that. But I'm doing a lot of talking anyway. But I love the framing of it, the understanding of where you're at, and I think a lot of our life is these stories. Or at least it is moments that have been captured by stories throughout time and told in a lot of different ways. So I was going somewhere with that. I don't know the methodology thing. I love these points though.
Well, I'll tell you, what you just said is so true. If you were to really look back at my own life story, it is stair-stepping towards where I am today. And if you were to look at it in a true hero story type of situation, then yes, Samantha was that emergence of, I'm out in the wilderness, and she emerges, and it changes and crafts a new story and a new challenge for where I'm headed next. And it is remarkable that one individual could have such an incredible impact on my life and change the course of it in such a way that has not only improved it overall, but also what I'm investing my time and energy in, because I've gone from only singularly helping myself in this world to trying to help so many others. And it's totally changed my life.
Definitely. Yeah. And then, my head's still going down this rabbit hole with the wizard in the wilderness thing. It's like what makes it comedic a lot of times is the ignorance of the hero and the kind of knowing smirk of the guide, so to speak. And that can be like that, and so you get instances where the scenario popped into my head, and you're lost in the woods, and you meet the crazy old guy that's been living out there forever, and you say, man, how do I get out of here? And he says, depends on where you want to go. If you go that way, this is what if you go this way, if you go that way. And I'm not here to tell you which way you should go, but I can tell you which way is the way that you want to go once you know what it is. And I think that's part of your method too. So you got the, and what I'll do is I'll bring my generic understanding of each term to you. Tell me how close I am, maybe. Like stoicism, a lot of people, so if we explain that a little bit, a lot of people think it means no emotion. I am a stone. It is not stonic, it is stoic.
Yes, so exactly.
Yeah. You're still going to have but you are not, what it means is you are not ruled by your passions. And the Greeks had a fantastic term, which we have adopted, and a lot of people don't know this. The term was akrasia. And when I explain a little more, a lot of people get it. But if you imagine an apple cart, a wheeled cart, and it had a block under one of the wheels, and that block gets knocked out, and that apple cart is akrasia. It is just rolling downhill out of control, or something which is not under control, or not bounded, not contained. So the opposite of acrasia or acrasia is krasia, control, and that's where we also get the word or the what do you call it? It's a sometimes we put a word in front of a word and sometimes we put it at the end. Would you remember?
A prefix.
Prefix or suffix. Suffix. It's a suffix, the suffix krasi, as in democracy, democracy, controlled by the demos, controlled by the people. So, and krasia is also, or akrasia is where we also get the word crazy. This person's crazy. They're out of control. I was going somewhere with that. Oh, so a person ruled by their passions, the Greeks would say, is akrasic, or is suffering akrasia. They are out of, or is in the behavioral state of being out of control. And Stoicism was meant to address that. It's like, look, it's okay to have desires and passions. It's okay to recognize them. That's why they a lot of people quote or turn to Marcus Aurelius as the exemplar, because he's like, hey, I love all kinds of things and it's great, and you enjoy them in moderation, at the right time, in the right place, assuming it's not making other parts of your life worse. So you just start with the idea of stoic, and so don't be and also the Buddhists and meditative folks would say, don't be reactive. The whole point of meditating is not to empty your mind, but to not engage with your mind. Look at, there it is as it floats by. There's my anger. Wow, why is that there? I don't even know. You don't have to grab it. You don't have to throw it out. You don't have to wrestle with it in any way. You can just let it be. Just let it be. I'm angry. Why am I angry?
Yeah.
Dispassionate. Okay, I've said way too much about that already. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's not no emotion. It's recognizing the emotion, yet choosing not to act upon it because you see the natural progression of what acting upon it will be. It's being in true control of who you are. And the reason that Marcus Aurelius, I think, is so fascinating is because when you read Meditations, this is a look into the most powerful man on earth 2,000 years ago. This is someone who, even though he had control outwardly of anything that he wanted, he was wrestling with trying to perfect what was within his own mind. And that says a lot about the character of this individual. I mean, really a remarkable man, really.
Oh, yeah. And he stands in, so if we do the yin yang balance of opposites, proper stoicism, Marcus Aurelius, being ruled by your passions, Caligula. And he did a lot of messed up shit. And he just did whatever he was. It was absolute hedonism. So you really can't get him. You can go down that path and you can end up like nobody wants that. I think he got, what was it? There were stories in one of the books. I can't remember. It might even be in The Witch's Dream. It was probably not in The Witch's Dream book, but stories of Caligula having horrible nightmares and being unable to sleep. And he would wander around at night. And sometimes he didn't know whether he was sleeping or awake. He would ask them, am I awake? Am I dreaming? He would ask people. Just so he ended up honestly tortured by his own misbehavior, by these passions ruling him, and that leads into other layers of analysis from other traditions. I call it, no offense to anybody, I call it the Christian mythology, because I'm not a believer. Tremendous appreciation. So that's where you get, I think, the idea of demon possession is you let these negative things take control of you and guide your behaviors, and it leads you into a place that where around you create hell on earth that doesn't have to be there. Yeah. So that might. So first thing, control your emotions, or at least do not be ruled by your passions. And then observe. You got to take a look at what's the classic line. The first step is admitting there's a problem. You got to observe and say, okay, what am I looking at here? Number one, you stoic, you observe your emotions, but then you also observe your situation and your behaviors and say, is this working for me? Is this what I want? Is it getting me the outcomes I prefer?
Exactly. Except specifically what I focus on in the Stoic is we're focusing in on one thing or one behavior. So take a single verse out of Meditations, whatever that might be, and then focus on how that applies in your own life. Maybe it's about how others view you. Well, I mean, does that matter? No, it doesn't matter. Now, as you move into observing that behavior, that would be like, get a full understanding of the verse and what it means. But then as you move into observe, how is that impacting in my own life? Like observing your behavior as it relates to this Stoic concept. And everybody is constantly judging me. I feel judged. I have to act this way. I have to, oh, wait a second. Like that is the observation of whatever that particular Stoic belief is, if that makes sense.
No, actually, definitely. And it's also one of those things like, again, the which way in the woods. Well, it depends on what you're looking for. So there are, and I'm going to do a book one of these days. I've got so many ideas for books. They're never going to, half of them are never going to get made. I hope to do some of them. One of them is A Wizard's Guide to the Aspirational Aphorism. So it's like you can actually try and just, what does it mean an apple a day keeps the doctor away? That kind of thing. It's something so simple. What is it and what is it not? So this idea too is like, there are times when you absolutely should ignore bad feedback from trolls on the internet. There's people who are just jerks. They're doing it for the lulz. They want a reaction and agitation. They're not looking out for your best interest. You should definitely ignore those guys. Then again, if you've got friends and family, you've got a business circle, there's people whose opinions affect you, and you should at least be aware of them and why they have that reaction to you. So observing yourself in the context of all the people you're working with or live with or love. Do you want your marriage to work? Well, you should probably care what your wife thinks. Probably, unless you got a very non-traditional relationship where for some reason that doesn't matter. But I can't imagine it myself. But and then so once you've stoically allowed an emotion to exist without engaging with it, you've observed how that connects to you and the people around you. Then you get into the behavioral aspect, and that is assessing your behavior or implementing behavior. How do you quantify that?
This is assessing the behavior and remapping what that behavior should be. So you know how you're reacting with the observation of this example we're kind of moving with right now is how other people view you, right? So as you move into that, how do I normally react? Well, a troll says something to me on the internet. I just like get into this back and forth with them, and I go down a rabbit hole for 3 hours. Well, that's probably not healthy. So like, what should that behavior be? So we're in the behavior step, you're moving through two things. What am I doing? You've observed what you're doing now. You're mapping out that behavior now. Remap it to what might work better so that you can then execute, which is the testing. Your next step is actually testing this out.
Definitely, because as they say, no plan survives contact with the enemy. You probably didn't think through all the complications that are gonna get you there. That's a big deal for me. Sometimes I put off projects because I haven't fully conceptualized every step beginning to end. Now, sometimes if you got one crack at something, you probably should think about it for a long time. That's okay. But sometimes, and I found this for myself, I don't understand the process until I'm in it, and then it becomes obvious what I need to do to finish it. But that portion of obviously this is what I need to finish it couldn't happen until I started. So sometimes you got to just get going, and then I'd imagine and there's a bit of maybe each step almost seems like it can recursively loop back up.
That's exactly right. That's what happens. You get stuck in a little bit recursive in OBE. Observe, behavior, execute. That didn't work. Let's go back. Observe what just happened. Why didn't that work? Okay, we're going to remap the behavior, execute again. And you go round and round and round until you find what works. And once you do, it's that eureka moment where you're like, okay, we can move on.
Well, not only that, but I don't think it's just the OBE. I think it also, so you observe, you assess or try to constitute a new behavior. You execute it in practice. And then let's say it fails. You got to go right back to stoic. It's okay. I am not all bad. Like a lot of people, especially with addictive behaviors, it's a lot of black and white thinking. And it's like, oh, of course I failed. I'm a failure. I fail at everything. I might as well give up. Who cares if I self-destruct? A lot of that negative. No. Stoic. Okay. I'm having negative feelings associated with failure. That's okay. Yeah. People fail. I didn't have the right method. Let's observe this. What went wrong? And then you bam, right back into it. But that first thing too is that emotional regulation. A lot of people have a really hard time with that. That's a lot of times why they engage with trolls. Now I do it because I think it's funny. I like saying mean things back to troll. Why not? So as long as you're doing it for the right reason, but if you're like caught in this, I'm angry, this person has to know how wrong they are. They don't care. They don't care. You're never going to convince them. They laugh at your rage. So definitely the internet could use a little more stoicism, I think. That reminds me too. I mean, he's retweeted some of my praise as well, but there's a guy, Akira the Don. Have you ever heard of him? He does lo-fi, kind of hip-hoppy beats that use samples of Marcus Aurelius.
Oh.
Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan. I can't think of a half dozen other people he's done. Oh, Paul Harvey. I don't know if you're old enough. You remember that
Oh, I
guy?
love
Yeah.
Paul Harvey. Of
And
course.
that's the rest of the story. Oh, I love that guy so much. I used to listen to him anyways as a kid. But he's got like so he'll set like he partly inspired me to do my AI radio thing where I'm like he's
Mm-hmm.
sampling great wisdom from the ages and putting it to music so people can enjoy it as music and they don't have to read it as words on a page,
Right.
or it's more interesting maybe than just an audio book, but it really
Mm-hmm.
captures the essence of certain. I was going somewhere with that. He's got um
Well, check him out.
what were we just talking about? We're all over the place. It's this. Welcome to my brain. That's how it works. No, yeah, Akira the Don. I can't recommend him highly enough. But I think he had something he released recently that was relevant to what we were talking about, and it's gone. I got lost in the explanation. That's okay. And okay, so we've finally gotten down to the idea of restore. What does that
Yeah.
mean in your lingo?
In my lingo, that is looking at those that have been impacted by this behavior in the past.
Mm.
Who, you know, who did you possibly overreact with in the past that you lashed out or did whatever? And this is in the traditional like 12-step programs. This would be the concept of making amends.
Mm-hmm.
This is going back to those. And of course there's a big emphasis in my method that, hey, look, we're not looking for forgiveness that's two-way street here. You're reaching out, you've let it go on your end. If they are mean or hostile or whatever, it's like, that's your deal. And then you just go right back to stoic and you work on something new in your existence. And
For
that's
sure.
what keeps you going in the path.
Yeah, it's also good to maybe acknowledge to people you are justified in being upset about that. I screwed up,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's okay if you're still angry. I'm not. I'm not mad at you because you're still mad at me. I'm saying sorry. You're supposed to accept it. Like that's not how it works. Yeah, I should have was sorry. No, that's a classic. That's a
Yeah.
classic thing too. That's
That is
almost
such a classic.
yeah. That
Yeah.
is
It's almost cliche, honestly. It's
for sure.
such a classic.
What is there's another saying? It's cliches are cliches because they're true. So
Yes.
it's not.
Yes.
It's not like it isn't true. That's good too because the restore actually. I mean, it has so many verbal associations with it as well. It's like it's restorative for you to acknowledge to the person you hurt that I know this was wrong and I'm not happy about this. I didn't want to do that to you. Like, I mean, maybe I did at the time, but it was, that's not who I really want to be.
Right.
But then it also hopefully restores healthy relationships around you. A lot of people, they're looking for a reason to be forgiving. I know there's a lot of trolls out there, and there's a lot of people that are mean and angry and whatnot, but most of the people in your life are like just normal people who aren't jerks. So you do something wrong, and they really what they want more than anything is for you to say, I didn't get it at the time, but this was bad. And I did it. I did it to you or involved you in something that made your life more complicated. And I want to acknowledge that. And they're like, God, that's all I wanted. Just an apology.
Yeah.
And then most people are willing to be forgiving. Depends on how badly you screwed up that relationship. You steal from grandma one too many times and you don't get to crash on her couch anymore. It's sometimes that's over. Even if she loves you and she's like, I just can't take that chance anymore. It happens. And then you're like, well, I learned that lesson the hard way. I better not screw up that way with anyone else ever again, but only if you admit it to yourself and to them. And that's an important thing too, is like, if you're doing it to get them to forgive you or to get something back from them, like you only apologize to grandma so she'll let you stay on her couch again, that's still in that addiction cycle of like I'm manipulating people what is it called, instrumental behavior versus versus just keeping it real.
Being
I rambled a
authentic.
lot.
Yeah.
Authenticity.
You just want to be authentic. You want to be your real self. And what you said is so true. People, the vast majority, at least 95, if not greater percentage of people out there, they want a life that doesn't have a lot of challenge. They seek out a life that is balanced and is peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And peace comes in that forgiveness. So it's amazing how many people that I just like completely on purpose destroyed the relationship at the time have forgiven me. And, I don't talk to them anymore, but when I reached out and sought that forgiveness, I received it. And that's amazing because some of those people I didn't think would ever even take a phone call from me and or meet for coffee with me so I could have the opportunity to say, you know what, I did some horrible stuff to you, and I'm sorry about that. And
Yeah.
it almost instantly comes out of most of them. I know you were going through a tough time, but it looks like you're doing better now. I'm proud of you. Okay, great,
Yeah.
fantastic. And then that releases tension on your side as well, because there's a huge amount of weight that you carry when you know that you've hurt someone if you're a good person at heart.
Oh
It,
yeah.
it
Yeah.
does it does drag on you. And coming full circle back to talking about Caligula.
Oh yeah.
Well,
Right.
I mean, that's a perfect example of doing everything that you're just whatever whim you might have. If you act that way, eventually it will collapse upon you. You
Hmm.
cannot. I don't think we were designed in our minds to be able to handle acting on our every whim. There have to be some guardrails in our existence, or else our minds just kind of wander into madness.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I think ultimately too, I believe, if I don't have this wrong, I believe Caligula was assassinated eventually. Like people just got sick of it and were like, "Man, we know you're the emperor, and we put up with this as long as we could, but you got to go. This can't, now you're fucking with too many people.
Yeah, yeah,
You just if you just kept it to the peasants, that would have been one thing. But you started pulling us into it, and we got the swords. So maybe you don't
yeah.
want to do that. So it's definitely consequences. Well, one thing that came to my mind as you were talking about that is the cycle of guilt and shame that goes
Hmm.
along with things. Is like so you have guilt and feel ashamed of behavior from the past, and that becomes a reason to use more to cover up that
Yes.
feeling, to numb that feeling, and that's a vicious cycle too. But also the idea of sometimes we what is it that guilt or shame that we have from past behaviors leads us to repeat it because we don't want to feel bad about it. We don't want to admit it was a mistake. So we're like, there's nothing wrong with this. Even though I do feel bad, well, I'm going to do it again to show myself that it's the right thing to do. I'm going to reinforce that behavior instead. And that actually, if you want to get out from under it, you got to, in some senses, rip off the Band-Aid and say,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to feel all the horrible about how
Hmm.
bad this situation was. And I'm going to shame myself in an interpersonal manner, at least with an apology. It's like I'm accepting guilt and I feel ashamed. And I mean, getting to that point can be people go to pretty extreme
Yes.
lengths to avoid that. And a lot of this is emotionally based. It's I feel like I want this, or I feel like I want to avoid this negative emotion, and they get stuck
You
in
will
that.
contort yourself. I think everyone will contort themselves into ways that are almost unimaginable to a sober mind in order to remain in their pain.
Mm-hmm.
And to keep it covered up. So they have this underlying pain. They're covering it up with substances, and anytime that they get out and feel just sober enough to realize the pain they have, they immediately push it back under with the numbing.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's you're exactly right. And the more that you do, especially in the case of like alcohol or opiates, you're always needing more and more and more to get that numbed. And so it's basically it's making the problem even worse. The underlying pain and the underlying whatever has occurred, that hasn't actually changed at all. But the amount of effort required to keep it down becomes greater and greater.
Oh yeah, definitely. And there's an image popped into my mind of like what we would say to people sometimes, stop digging. You're in a hole.
Yes.
Stop digging. Well, that is I mean, you got what I'm talking about. So sometimes we fill this pit and it's full of our guilt and shame, just gets deeper and deeper and deeper. And then actually tearing off that Band-Aid and apologizing, you lift a cover on it and it kind of it wants to just come all out. Now you got to feel it as it hits the surface, but the hole goes away eventually.
Yeah.
It empties of that once you've addressed it, looked at it specifically, taken action and apologies and changed your behavior. And now you've established a new, better, healthier pattern. You stop digging the hole. And it's like, but a lot of people don't want to, they don't want the pain of letting it out, of letting it escape the hole. They'd rather stuff more in there until the hole gets deeper and deeper. And then, I mean, I think that's what drives most people to the self-destructive side of things. They're like, I feel so bad. The hole is so deep, I can never get out. And that's where we get a lot of the depression, suicidal ideation type of stuff coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so yeah, it's hard to
Yeah,
tell people.
very sad, but that's also
Yeah,
why you have the term rock bottom, because that,
absolutely. Yeah,
you know, you've dug so deep that you have nowhere else to go. This is it. You're going to crash, and that's the end.
yeah,
You have covered it up as long as you possibly can. And so many people never make it out until they hit rock bottom. I mean, I didn't.
for sure. Yeah, and it's different for everybody. It's just when you've lost enough things you actually care about. When you're like, wow, the last few things that gave me any sense of feeling like I was a good person, my relationships that made me feel fulfilled and like I was doing something important, gone. And it's like, wow, I got really now I have nothing. And then then you get the aphorisms that are like, well, there's nowhere to go but up. You hit rock bottom. It's like, now you can start that journey. Oh man, is it going to suck? But it's going to be worth it at the end. There's that hero's journey thing. We're coming back around to that of like, it's going through the dark woods is not easy. It is painful and scary and all of the above, but that's where the treasure is. You got to get through. You got to get, well, in some ways you're already in the dark woods. Do you want to get out? You can die here. You go right ahead. Not this is not professional advice, but you can. But most of us don't want to stay there, I would say. And I mean, some people do. It's hard. How do you convince someone you're in the dark, scary woods and I can help you get out, but you got to listen to me and you got to follow me. And they're like, screw off. And it's like, that's sad. That's too bad. But and some people aren't ready yet.
You know what? You're ready when you're ready. And there were plenty of people around me saying, oh, I mean, it all started with Samantha, but that was the first person who said it and I heard it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, there were plenty of people before her being like, you need to stop drinking. You need to stop doing this. You need to figure out what's going on with you. You're getting worse. All of those comments were said, but, it took her for whatever reason.
Yeah.
She woke me up and she woke me up almost instantly. So it's really wild looking back. And hopefully everybody has a moment like that. Sometimes it comes from within. But you have to have it and you have to want it.
For sure. Yeah. That's what I would describe as magic. Because we don't know how to make it happen and we don't know why it works. And we've put all kinds of theories and boundaries and, well, if you look at it this way, but when it comes down to it, it's like, why that person at that time, at that place with you in the right state of mind? Deja vu stuff. It's like, where does this even come from? How does this even happen? I think of it too, like inspiration, like Archimedes and the water displacement, and he's Eureka. Well, he had a moment. He had what in his brain made him notice that and relate it to the volume of his body and we don't know. That's I describe it as a pyramid of knowledge that takes you only so far. Then there's a little gap. And then the all-seeing eye or the flame or the light bulb turns on. It's like, what happens in that gap? I think that's magic. How to make more magic happen more often. That's what we should be looking at. But
I think that requires a state of mind, which I constantly focus on now, because having experienced that. And looking back at least 2 to 3 times in my life, like moments like the one that I had with her, is you have to keep your eyes, you have to be aware, much more aware of things, aware of the subtleties of the things that are happening around you, because most often it is the things that are in the background or, it's just past the foreground of your vision, or maybe it's something you hear off to the side that ends up triggering something deep that resonates with you that will totally change your perspective on things. And it's really interesting to me because it's never something you're looking directly at. It's like too much focus on something does not allow you to actually see what you're trying to fix. And oftentimes that's why I just stop what I'm doing and I'll go for a walk. And then I invariably will find the answer out in nature. I'll see like I can tell you that I had an idea that came to me this weekend just because I was out on a walk and I stopped because the wind started blowing and it was moving this leaf just this one leaf, and the whole tree, but just this one leaf was moving. And I was just totally captivated by this. Like, why is that one leaf moving? Just that one leaf. And then all of a sudden the branch started to move. And so I brought that back in my thought process, is that I was struggling to understand how one small voice could impact greater voices if it isn't heard or seen. Like, you have to see something or observe something for it to happen. And this was an instance where I saw that one leaf, and as I focused on that leaf, then everything else started to blow around it. And I know it was probably because the wind came in at a certain angle and all these other things.
We can give a mechanical explanation, but
yes, but what happened in that moment is that it changed my thought process about something else that I was struggling to come to a conclusion on.
Definitely. Yeah. I mean, the best I've been able to do in terms of, you can't manufacture those. There isn't a process of like, well, you cut and paste here and you turn this dial to X, and it doesn't work like that. But what you can do is try and put yourself in a state of receptive readiness to observe, and then amazing things happen. It was going somewhere with that of the this relates to, speaking of, I love these books. I've created my own modern versions as an editor of classic, so like I said, The Witch's Dream book, I didn't write. It's from 1885. Well, there's another book where they talk about relating dreams and sleep to inattention. And that there's, and it talks about things like going for a walk to get away from a problem, because you're very, very attentive to it, and letting your mind wander onto other topics, and kind of meditatively in a way. I'm walking, I'm looking at nature, and then for some reason not focusing, you get that peripheral thing, and an answer starts to tease itself. It's almost like a beacon in a foggy night. It's like you don't know how far away it is exactly. You don't know what is the shape of the land over there, but there's something there, and then that allows you to look in that direction or avoid it if you like. Well, there's probably rocks, we should go this way if you're on a boat, but I look at that as because I've talked to a lot of people about intuition. It's like intuition can't always give you an answer, but it can tell you which direction to look. Like, look, there's something here. Let's see if we can figure it out. So trust your gut to point you at something, but not necessarily to give you a conclusion from whole cloth without investigation. That's not the best way to go. Well, let's look at the facts and figure out what's actually going on. There's something going on. But that was my whole ramble too, when you were talking about the leaf and whatnot. That all of that was in my head. Like, boom, I gotta say it.
No, it's perfect. What you said is exactly what occurred, though, because that looking at the leaf, it showed me something that was going on over here in this other problem, and then suddenly I was able to go like, hold on a second. This applies over here. Yeah. Let me think about it in the application of what I'm trying to solve. And then, boom, problem solved. Okay. And then I immediately turned around and I'm walking home to take care of my challenge.
Oh, I got to go do this. You got to strike while the iron's hot. Yeah. I love analogies.
Oh, yeah. It gets your energy going because, you solved a challenge. So I think that there's something to be said about that focus, focusing on doing things. Oftentimes you talk about just general things that everyone does. You've probably taken a test at some point in your life, and that there's some evidence that the best thing to do before a test is not to think about the test at all, or any of the content or anything.
Performance anxiety,
yeah, and then just go in there all relaxed and take it, because you know it already, and if you have the knowledge, then showing it up on a test is a piece of cake. So why should you cram?
Oh yeah, and well, I think that relates back to preparing yourself for an opportunity that you can't force to occur. It's not mechanistic. So there's two different kinds of test anxiety. I studied really hard and this really matters, and God, I hope I don't choke. The other anxiety is I didn't study at all. I didn't even read the book. I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm probably going to fail. And so there's that anxiety too. But again, teasing out which is which, I didn't. Every overachiever thinks I didn't study enough, and that's kind of why they overachieve. Like, I'm always pushing myself to do more. Sometimes you got to relax. Well, and then again, depends on what you're looking for. I mean, I guess if you're like, I must achieve the highest, we don't. That's a weird thing. Driven people accomplish the greatest things, but man, are they tortured by their drive. So it's one of those things where it's like, I can't advise someone, hey, dude, you should relax. Like maybe you're doing exactly what you need to do, as long as it's not killing you, which is a tough thing too, because there's a lot of tortured artists that end up dead through different means, but man, they made some great art. And it's like, I thought this a long time ago, early days of going to school and whatnot. It's like, is it ethical to try and say cure an artist's depression if that is what helps them to make their great art? Is it, now, and again, my answer was
no.
It defaults to them. If they want it, if they want to feel differently, let's talk about how to make that happen. But I don't know if we should force it on someone. I always felt uncomfortable with that. You had some thoughts though.
No, yeah, no. I was going to say that I lean towards no.
I do too. Yeah.
I think that the greatest creativity comes forth from a mind that is not hindered. And so if let's say, for example, that I wanted to continue down this path and be a drunk the rest of my life, I mean, it didn't keep me from being a creative individual. I certainly was, but I feel like I'm more creative now because I have less burden upon my mind. It's interesting. Now, I didn't believe necessarily that, and I am bipolar, so I have that unique up and down of mania and depression that can impact me from time to time. So I see it, and I see it in others where it can be a huge challenge in their life, but sometimes the tortured souls provide inspiration for thousands, millions of people in their art. And who are we to say that isn't what they're supposed to bring forth to this world?
For sure. And then you get these situations where it's like this person, poor tortured soul, driven, and they invent something amazing that helps a million people at the cost of so they've literally sacrificed themselves to save a million people. But so it's hard for me to tell someone you should be as relaxed as I am about everything. Maybe you shouldn't. What have I accomplished that's great? And what have I built? I'm doing my thing. I'm just kind of chill. I'd probably be more successful if I was more focused, dedicated, active. But I'm definitely, I don't know. It's been years and years now. I've been the leaf on the wind type of thing. Like, I'm not blown any which way the wind blows, but I'm definitely along for the ride on some things. And for me personally, I've found like, going with that flow, whatever it is, whatever kind of little weird channel I'm in, it's taking me somewhere, and I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to find out where this goes. And no, but it involves a lot of, don't worry about it. I'm pretty chill. Like whatever,
Yeah. No, I like that. I really do like that. It might surprise you a little bit because I definitely am more the overachiever type. But I'm also someone, as I said at the top of our conversation, that has done a ton of different things, because anytime I've been like, ooh, that looks interesting, I've literally stopped whatever the heck I was doing, switched gears and just done that. And people around me are like, but you're like literally the best at this. I'm like, yeah.
Been there, done that. It's not entertaining
I'm just
anymore.
Like, it's like, this has become boring. I'm onto this now.
Yeah.
And so I think that also we tend to put ourselves in this, what is success? And success is different for everybody. And this is actually something I stress in the sober method. It's in my book 2 or 3 times, is that the reason that this method is so successful is because it's different for everybody. Your map of success for you is different than my map of success for me and everybody else out there. And what I view as a successful person is different than what you view as a successful person.
For sure.
And really what matters in life is, are you happy with where you are with your existence? If you can say yes, then you're right where you need to be.
Yep. I think that's definitely right. And that's also goes with the thing. Like, if you are driven and you want to do more than I do, it's not for me to tell you shouldn't, that you shouldn't try, that you shouldn't want that. Definitely. I'm looking at the clock and I want to make sure we give you a good dream interpretation. So I don't want to run us out of time. We could probably talk about this for another hour at least, right?
Absolutely. I could tell we could probably talk for the next 4 or 5 hours. But
right?
yeah, so
we'll put a little timestamp here. So as per usual, I'm just gonna shut up and listen as our friend Massimo tells us about his dream, and then we'll try and figure it out together. So I'm ready when you are.
Benjamin the Dream Wizard wants to help you pierce the veil of night and shine the light of understanding upon the mystery of dreams. Every episode of his Dreamscapes program features real dreamers gifted with rare insight into their nocturnal visions. New Dreamscapes episodes appear every week on YouTube, Rumble, Odyssey, and other video hosting platforms, as well as free audiobooks exploring the psychological principles which inform our dream experience, and much, much more. To join the wizard as a guest, reach out across more than a dozen social media platforms and through the contact page at benjaminthedreamwizard.com, where you will also find the wizard's growing catalog of historical dream literature available on Amazon, documenting the wisdom and wonder of exploration into the world of dreams over the past 2,000 years. That's Benjamin the Dream Wizard on YouTube and at benjaminthedreamwizard.com.
all right. Well, a handful of weeks ago, this is about a month ago, I had a really interesting dream that was a combination of a full-on dream, but it also had, some lucid moments in it because I awoke at least twice talking to myself, remembered that I did, and then falling back asleep and finishing out the dream. So here is my crazy dream. So I had a dream where um, I showed up in this town. I hadn't lived there before, and I was this well-to-do individual, successful, and I was kind of in the end of my career, so to speak. And in this town, they had taken this human, uh, and they had turned him into a mouse. But before he was a mouse, he was like a pretty evil human. So like their form of punishment for this person was they turned him into a mouse. But not only did they turn him into a mouse, they put him into mouse prison. So he was like in this prison, but but he had this little cell. And for whatever reason, I got introduced to this mouse. And this mouse, his name happened to be Phil. I don't know why his name's Phil, but that was his name. And this evil mouse, somehow I morphed into an attorney. I ended up like defending this mouse in some appeal to try to get him out of jail. And on two occasions, I got his like life extended from being executed. And the final time, like there was no chance he was going to be executed within a year. But I had become really good friends with Phil. I mean, he was a pretty okay mouse, as far as I could tell. And all these things that they said that he'd done in the past, which never really got elaborated in the dream, but he was just called evil. And so I just felt like maybe we should not execute him. Well, then the mouse escaped. Phil's on the loose, and they the community they were just like they figured that I had to be hiding him. Like, why wouldn't I be hiding him? You're the one that's come to like him and all that. And so they were ready to run me out of town. And so this mouse could actually talk too. So it's like a Stuart Little type of situation going on here as well. I just wanted to point that out. So Phil wasn't like mouse that somehow didn't speak. He was a talking tiny little mouse. He didn't wear like a suit or anything like Stuart Little, but that's kind of like how I connected in my head after I woke up. And so anyway, they eventually they find him, and they realize that I hadn't been hiding him, and that they're like going to go ahead and execute him. And they're reading out all this like list of grievances, but for some reason I don't remember them or didn't hear them, but because I didn't retain any of that when I woke up. but as I was standing there in the moment, I started to think about all of the bad things that I had done before I'd come to this town. And that if the town knew some of the bad things I had done, they might lock me up. And everyone here thinks that I'm a good person. But am I really a good person or am I evil like Phil? And I mean, what if they find me out? And so I get really nervous about this. And then they like are putting the needle into poor little Phil to kill him. And that's when I woke up and I was like, I started crying. It was really weird. And the first thought I had after this was that there's a lot of nuance in what people are made up of, and that people who are good could have underlying evil within them, and that it's always like a wrestling struggle within someone on what part of them is displayed. And I'm basically, that's all I remember after the dream. But it was it was so intense.
Yeah. That's a great one. Love it. Love it. Okay, it happened about a month ago. Partially lucid. So when you say partially lucid, it's because you woke up. I mean, did you wake up a little bit and then go back into the dream?
Yeah. I woke up a little bit, and when I woke up, it was during the first time I woke up, it was during the when I was like in court or whatever arguing, and I woke up like in the middle. I actually was talking about or giving my argument in court, and I woke up to hear myself actually talking. And as I mentioned before we got started, this is something that happens a lot. I'm a talker in my sleep.
Yeah.
And so quite often I will wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be, full on talking. And people have been known to have conversations with me while I'm dreaming.
Oh yeah, that's actually Greek word for that, of course, somniloquy, literally sleep talking.
Okay.
Just like somnambulation, sleep walking. And they're considered the same thing. So actually, way back in the day, they were all somnambulisms. Any behavior during sleep, laughing, crying, talking, walking, we're all under that umbrella. And then we started to tease them out a little bit and say, okay, well, there's sleep talking and there's sleep walking and there's sleep crying and whatnot. So what causes those things? There's broadly speaking, there's a physiological anyway, disconnect that happens that is programmed into us so that we tend not to be unconscious while our body is walking around doing things. And something flips that switch where it's like not fully disconnected. If it's like electrical pathways like that breaker isn't all the way down. It's still kind of leaking through. Why? We don't know. We do know some medications sometimes help. But if it isn't majorly disruptive, I mean, just leave it alone. Like whatever. I talk in my sleep sometimes, as long as you're not crawling down to rooftops and waking up balanced on someone's chimney, three houses down. It's like, how the hell did I get here? I had one instance myself, which this doesn't typically happen to me. Number one, I don't tend to remember my dreams, but I was at some kind of convention and I didn't get a hotel room. And I don't know why I didn't even think of it until I was there. And I'm like, I guess I'm sleeping in the lobby. I'm just going to just post up in a chair and lean over. And I woke up walking through a kitchen. And maybe I was looking for a bathroom or something. And so I'm where I became fully awake is I'm out in this alleyway. And I just looked back at the door I'd come through and I walked back in there and it was a kitchen, the kitchen of this hotel or whatever. And I asked the guy, did I just walk through here? And he's like, yeah, man. I said, something to you, but you didn't respond. I'm like, yeah, I think I was sleepwalking. I'm sorry. He's like, is this way back to the lobby? Okay. So we went back to the lobby and there's my, I think I had not a briefcase, but some kind of a bag where I had my supplies for the con in it. This was, hey, stop that. Don't be a bastard. They're always trying to, they're having too much fun over there. Anyway, that's my only experience with it. It's very disorienting, very weird. That's my experience. I don't know if it's apropos of anything, but we're talking about you, not me. Just so you know, I have I have something to reference, which may not be exactly true. And then my wife, who talks in her sleep sometimes, she'll be laughing. I'm like, "What's so funny?" She's like, "It's," and then she's out again. Yeah, no coherent thing. And then I'll ask her, "You were dreaming? Did you remember talking to me?" No. Do you remember what you dreamed? Nope. Not at all. Nothing. She's got nothing. I'm like, okay, that happened.
Wow. No, I actually sometimes remember the conversations, and then, like whoever is sleeping has been sleeping, like my ex-wife, I would have conversations with her, and then the following day, while I was asleep, it would integrate into my dream. I would remember the dream, and then I would say, "Do you remember when we were talking about this last night?" And she said, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, I was probably dreaming, but we had a conversation about this."
Yeah.
And she'd be like,
and she doesn't maybe doesn't have any memory of you sleep talking either. Like she was asleep for it.
Or... Yeah. Well, she said, she was like, "I don't know, I was so tired." And I was like,
gotcha. Yeah.
So like, she's like, "Yeah, I guess maybe you said something," but I would remember the conversation and she wouldn't.
Gotcha.
And so it was just, I mean, like she wasn't yet asleep, but I had already, it was just really wild.
So because I don't tend to have lucid dreams, I mean, I think I maybe have one. So what I'm trying to do is understand your experience better by trying to relate it to my own. So this isn't just me. Hey, enough about you. Let me tell you a story. It's like there's a purpose behind this. So because I have very little experience, it's hard for me to know. No, there's a recursive loop. There certainly is, with the idea of external stimulus, physical stimulus, or environmental whatnot affecting dream content. Well established. Mm-hmm. And then there's a bit of a recursive loop with the lucid thing of like, we have a dream experience that leads to a lucid or semi-lucid experience, and then bleeds over into sleep talking, and then that comes back into the dream with us because we just had, it's all one continuous stream of consciousness that we're experiencing as that's going on, and then it feeds back into the thing. So it would be difficult for me to tease out, what's conscious thought process versus unconscious dream process. And my theory on dreams is that it is, the experience of dreams is more like what our raw, unfiltered stream of consciousness really is, what it really looks like. And then what we do is we then filter that through conscious attention, pick and choose, form sentences to express thoughts to other people, or try to organize those images and stream of consciousness into an executable plan, including steps. Those are things we can typically only do consciously, or that we're aware of doing consciously. I had a whole point to that. Nope, gone. It doesn't matter. Oh boy. Maybe I just needed to throw that in there so that it's more context for what we're doing. So I guess I would say that's what I do when I'm trying to do the dream analysis thing is, okay, what was your thought process here? And I guess ultimately maybe it doesn't matter what was lucid, semi-lucid, or sleep talking, or fully awake. It all fits together. And so what I'm looking for with these things is the most likely relevant thought process you might have been experiencing due to what's going on in your life at the time, or what the content of the dream seems to be showing us. There's like a point. There's like a thought experiment. Right. Yeah, as I was saying earlier, a thought experiment you're running for yourself in your own mind.
Dreams are always a test, and I personally feel like because I remember almost all my dreams, I keep a notepad on my nightstand.
That's recommended. If you want to remember them, you have to write them down. You have to record them in some manner.
Yeah. And if that sometimes I'll be like staying in a hotel or something and I don't have it, I'll immediately open my phone and go and like put it in Notepad immediately. Yeah. Because I like to go back and look at them and pull them apart and understand in the context of what, just as you said, they relate to some problem I'm trying to solve on the surface. And so then I will reflect on the dream and try to see what was the solution in the dream and how might it improve the thinking I am on this idea. What idea or what problem am I working on that this relates to?
Absolutely.
But this particular dream, and the reason I brought it to you is that I'm not exactly sure, other than the fact that the only way that I can really relate to it is that obviously I've had quite the life, and I've done a lot of things that were probably bad in my life. And I live right now in Lincoln, Nebraska. I moved here 2 years ago, but I've spent most of my life away here. I was born here, but I mean, like, so I'm kind of like new to the community that I'm in. And so I can relate that like aspect of it, but I've been here for 2 years. Why would this dream manifest itself now?
Mm.
And then I was thinking about Phil. Who might Phil be? Is Phil someone I just met but then I was like, I haven't really met anyone new within the most recent part of, like I couldn't put anyone into like, who's Phil, And so then I started trying to pick apart and say, okay, well, maybe Phil represents a type of person, not a person. And maybe
Yeah.
maybe that's the broader story here. So I personally, the conclusion I came to, and I could be completely wrong about it, is that I'm still wrestling with things that I have done in my past, which I don't intend to come to light. And I'm a pretty open book. I'm like, look what I do for a living, right? I have to
Yeah.
tell people all the horrible things that I've done in order for them to relate to me, so they will take a chance on themselves to make themselves better. So I basically, I'll go on podcasts. People ask me the most incredible, personal questions, and I answer them freely because I think it will help others do things. But are there things that I may not talk about? I don't know. I don't feel like there are, but maybe there is something that I don't want out. And so that's where my mind went to in all of this. And again, my idea of this is not formed. I just thought it was a
Gotcha.
great one to bring to you because
Yeah.
I haven't been able to make any sense of it.
No, well, all of that is good, and what I don't want to do is tell you what this is about. What I want to do is make, and I always do this, is like I tell folks, and it's true, the answers are not in me. I'm just
Right. You're a guide.
Yeah, you, the dreamer, invite me into your head to have a look around, and I stand kind of off to the side behind your shoulder, shining a flashlight around, going, what is that over there? What does this look like to you? What if we look at it from this angle? So the last thing I want to do is tell people, okay, here's what it means. But I think, and I also don't want to be that guy who's like, well, why don't you tell me what you think? And then I'll pretend like I came up with that. We're not doing that either. It's definitely a collaborative process.
Well, now you know what I think as of this moment.
No,
I mean,
for
like
sure.
I laid it out. I mean, like that's the best I can make of it.
Yeah.
And I think that I'm onto something, but
No, I think you are
I don't
too.
know if I
Yeah.
I just
Because there's okay, so what was I going to say about this? Your gut reaction to this is, I think it's very true, and it's based. I think you're onto something because of the way the dream played out, and I think I know the part where you got there from. It's where you're looking at like, but there's a whole thing going on here. This dynamic of you've got a person who did some bad things and they're being punished. Now, why is a mouse, and why put to death, and why in mouse jail? All of this stuff that is meaning too. We're looking at some of the broad strokes too. So just going by what you were saying is that you kind of get to know him. You're like, well, he's not all bad, and you know what?
Yeah.
I'm not all good. So am I at risk of ending up like him? There's a comparison being made that, if I tell people, there's embarrassing things we're comfortable telling, and there's embarrassing things we are not comfortable telling. And there's always some of us who are like, that thing I did that was a horrible mistake a long time ago, and it's settled. It's been, justice has been done for all involved, but I'm still not proud of it. And I will never bring that up again because ain't nobody need to know that. That was way too embarrassing. But we incorporate that into our, the process we went through at the time, and the resolution to it, and the changes we made to grow as a human being. Especially as you get older, you start getting some gray hair. You've done some embarrassing shit in your life. Especially when you were a kid, you do all kinds of stupid stuff, and you're like, man, I should have known better. I'm really, especially when you start getting into the teenage years, and you're like, I'm aware and smart enough to figure out this was a bad idea, and I did it anyway, and that was just God. Anyway, look, the long story short, the idea of we've all got secrets in a way, and usually they're not catastrophic. They're not the body in my basement, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
No, your life changes if anybody finds that body, but not in not in a good way, of course. It's not usually that thing. It's just we're trying not to. Some of it is, there's not anything wrong with that either. It's like you don't have to lay your soul bare to every person you meet. That's, and even if you have a very close relationship, you don't have to I don't tell my wife everything. Just because there is not enough hours in the day, it's practically physically impossible. But also in our histories, like if it's long in the past and it's not really relevant to anything and it serves no purpose, I'm not going to hurt.
Right.
I'm not going to flagellate myself publicly. Look how much I can embarrass myself. Let's just not do that. So I just try not to ever think about it. I had a whole point there too.
Well, I think that the thing is that life is an interesting journey in which those that are with us at this moment will never know our whole past.
They can't. Yeah. Unless they were there for it. And even then they don't know everything because they can't see our internal world.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. And I say that a lot on people I help, is that we could stand side by side and experience the same thing, and we will repeat it differently immediately after, because the way that I interpret what happened, the world around me, is built from everything that happened to me before the moment that this thing we shared together happened.
Oh yeah.
And so we will say, oh, well, this happened. And she'll say, well, this happened. And I'm like, no, it didn't. It clearly was this, know?
Yeah.
But the reason that people end up in those situations is because we don't share all of our trauma. We don't share all of our past experiences. And so we get to where we are in today through a lived experience. And we also, I think, protect that on some level, because it is what is truly makes us us. It is our true identity. And there's no possible way that you can ever fully share who you are with anyone else. It's impossible.
No, it's true. And as much as you try to be open, and you might want to be that close to someone to really let down all your defenses, but you're just going to forget some things. Like, I don't even remember. I don't remember half the stupid shit I did, probably. That's how it goes. So anyway, I wanted to validate that idea that, there's definitely, now here's what I would do is, if you said that, I'd say, that's interesting. Why would that idea occur to you? Because I don't see it in the material. I definitely see that in the material. There's definitely keeping with the theme. So you're onto something there. The other reason to discuss some of these things in this way is we got to the idea of, so it opens, I'm new in town. Well, you're not 2 years later, but you might be thinking back to when you were, or it might not be about the place you're at currently. So just saying, giving me the real life connection to, I don't know, this didn't make too much sense because I've been living here for 2 years and it's actually a place I lived before. So it's like I'm coming home again, but this was a new town. Like, I've never been here before. So this is, what does it mean to be new in town? It's like you don't know anybody, so you're isolated and alone. We could go all these like word cloud associations, but it also means you don't know what's going on. You are fresh eyes on a situation. So what if I come to a place where I don't know the people, I don't know their history, I don't have a personal relationship with any of them, and now I'm confronted with a problem. Now I'm confronted with, here's a situation that, at the very least, you felt the need to, in a way, insert yourself into, like you became the attorney. Why?
Yeah.
Why did you go to bat for this guy? But before we get there, the thought process took you through, okay, I'm new to a situation. I'm putting eyes on it for the first time. New to town, putting eyes on it for the first time. And you give yourself a personal history of like, I'm well-to-do, successful. It's the end of my career. So you're not here to get anything from these people. You're not here to build a business or relationships with them. You become almost, and it's interesting that rather than putting yourself as, well, they invited me to be the judge. No, I've placed myself as the attorney. I'm going to try to, and it was specifically the attorney representing him, trying to talk them out of killing him.
Yeah.
So there's you look at the situation, you see someone who, and you don't even say he was innocent. I'm trying to get him off of false charges. No, he's probably guilty. He's probably done the things they accuse him of. But as you get to know him, you come to find out that these things are I don't want to mischaracterize it. I can't read my own notes. Why? I don't even know why I write things down.
He's not all evil. I come to recognize
not as
that
bad as people think he is.
He's not as bad as people think he is, that there's goodness within him. And I start to, I would say that the feeling that I got at the time was that I identified with him. I saw, obviously, because that's where it comes to at the end, is that I see myself in him and start getting worried. So,
Sure.
I mean, so that was occurring as I got to know him, that closeness. And then, of course, him escaping, and everyone think that I, helped him escape. I mean, so that shows that to me shows the closeness of a bond that everyone else saw. And they thought that, basically I was in cahoots with this criminal mouse.
Yeah.
Almost...
well, definitely. There's always external judgment. I mean, even if people don't say it and don't even formulate it in their mind, they feel maybe a certain way about a situation, and they either like you or don't like you for reasons they maybe can't even explain. So if you've come into a new place and suddenly you're telling all these people, hey, I'm going to take up for the guy that you don't like. I'm going to put myself out there because there's some manner of necessity in you to do this thing. There's some reason you feel like you need to be his attorney. So you show yourself, well, what would I do in this situation? Imagine I don't, being, successful, well-to-do, end of career, it's also a very freeing thing. It's like, what would I do if I had FU money? Well, I do whatever I want, but what would I do? What do I want? Now that I've got all this money, I'll tell you what I would do. I want, 100 acres in the woods and a castle. I would build an actual stone castle with all, on the outside. On the inside, it'd be a comfy, and I'd probably build a hobbit home. Okay, just give me unlimited money. I'm gonna.
Do you have a spare room I can move in with you?
Exactly right. Well, the part of it would be I would want to host like Renaissance fairs and have the castle be a hotel where some people can stay, hot water and showers, electricity, all that good stuff, and then actually build a little medieval village. I could go on about that for ages, but so if you are a very wealthy person and you hear about this, give me a lot of money. Give me today. I'll make it happen. Someday, maybe so. I was going with some of the building things, new to town. What the hell were we talking about? I just did that to myself.
No, we're talking about the having FU money, and this is what I would evidently, if I had FU money, I would help somebody that was in trouble.
Definitely,
right?
Yeah, and I should be throwing this back to you more often. I was like, what does that look like to you? But I'm trying to tell you what it looks like to me from the outside a little bit. But you definitely. Your mind seems concerned with ideas of what is in a way just punishment. Now he's been turned into a mouse, and even in the dream you're confused by that. So there's a piece of you that seemed to be saying, this doesn't make sense. I mean, how do you turn people into a mouse? And he's in a mouse jail, and so there's something about. And you thought of Stuart Little, so there's definitely influences from, say, all of us from our childhood of like what might we think of as a harmless, vulnerable creature that we would not want to see harmed. A little cute little mouse. You don't want to see it smashed by a hammer or foaming at the mouth from poison or dead in a trap. Even if those are maybe necessary things, because sometimes they get diseases and fleas and whatnot. It's a whole thing. But we look at that, we feel that compassion for it. Like, I would like to protect small, helpless, furry things. Right. And that's how you saw this person, and that's what they reduced him to. So there's something about the vulnerability of being justly accused. Like, he did it. He's not he's not innocent. But then so even the guilty, you look at them as someone worthy of compassion in a way, and you don't want them to be more harshly judged than is appropriate to the actual crime.
I think wasn't being turned into a mouse enough?
That's also that yeah.
I mean, replaying this dream right now, I feel like that was a fleeting thought in there as well. It's just
does he really need more punishment? Yeah.
I mean, like, what else do we really need to do to this person? I mean, they're a mouse and they're in jail. Now, I mean, like,
I love being interrupted because that's a fantastic thought. It's like the harm that they've done is being punished, and they have been reduced to a state of harmlessness. They can no longer hurt any. They're a mouse in mouse jail. Done. Problem solved. Why do we need to go this extra step? Why more punishment? And that question could be explained later on. I struggle with what to do with the lucid moments, and I explain why to the best of my ability at the time. But do you remember anything you said about the arguments you were giving in favor, or what you were saying as his attorney? I mean, I think you might have said, "I don't remember what I said," and that's
I don't remember exactly what I said. Yet, I mean, replaying this and saying it right now, I would imagine that my conscious mind is saying, I would have argued, isn't this punishment enough? So I would imagine that would have been something I would have said unconscious as well.
Possibly, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean,
either you remember or you don't. I mean, I ask a lot of questions. They don't have answers.
I don't remember. I wish I did. And that's actually one of the challenges often when I do sleep talk. It's about a 50-50. I mean, sometimes I remember it word for word, and other times it's just gibberish when I play it back.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's definitely true. I mean, that's, as I said, I've had the situations with my wife. I've actually had conversations with her, and she gives me nonsensical answers. Now, probably the answer makes sense to her, but she can't explain why, and she has no memory of it, so we're never going to know. But I wish I had a great example too. There was a couple of funny ones which just cracked me up in the morning. I'm like, let me tell you what you did, and she's like, I did not. I'm like, yeah. That'll be an embarrassing secret. No one will ever know. I'm not going to say what it was. So you're definitely, it isn't about mice. It isn't about prisoners necessarily, but you've got all these things of like, if you've rendered some, even an evil person, if you've rendered them harmless, is that enough? Is that enough? And so you're taking up for them saying, do we really need to kill this guy? Have we gone from justice to vengeance? And is that really appropriate? And I mean, in the broader strokes of your creative endeavor and your book and the sobriety thing and wanting to be someone who helps others, there's definitely going to be situations where what you're trying to do is help someone who's probably done a lot of shitty things become a better person, get away from doing those behaviors. And that includes an amount of accepting responsibility. You got to see it for what it is and realize it was a mistake. That's motivation to change. That's the whole point. If it wasn't a mistake, why would anyone change anything? It's working for me. I'm getting rich and people love me and I'm a drunk, and okay, no harm, no foul, I guess. I mean, it's not good for your liver and you're probably going to regret it later, but at least you're not destroying your life and hurting people. Right. There's a big difference. Anyway, long story short on that. So you've definitely got this thing where your job, your business is reaching out to the damaged who are suffering and trying to help them deal with the just consequences of their actions, and maybe let's not let that happen again. Let's get you out. Let's get you out of trouble, not erase the trouble, just no more trouble if we can do it. And the mouse. Okay, so what preceded that thing? Actually, let's do this. So you became an attorney to get the mouse out of jail, and his name is Phil, and that's very interesting too. Because I mean, the first thing that came to my mind was Dr. Phil, but that never occurred to you. That just popped into my head. Why? What is Phil? Philip? Are there any literary characters? Are there any exemplars, people from your life? Nothing you can think of?
Well, I can think of someone with that name who I helped when I was actually living on the street when I was homeless.
Okay.
Yeah. I haven't known many people named Phil, actually.
Sure. And then that one, it occurred to you, you're like, okay, do I have any associations with the name Phil? But it seems like a weak one, this particular guy.
Yeah, it's really weak.
Because you'd get a zing. You'd go, oh, I helped that guy on this. Phil, I remember Phil. Bam. And then, but no. You didn't have that experience. I think it's something else.
I had to just go search for it now, and I don't know if you saying Dr. Phil helped like cement and made me and
this
helped
guy
me remember.
Balding anyway.
No, he was a bigger guy though. And
so, yeah, Dr. Phil's like 6-something, and
so maybe that's why the connection. But yeah, I don't really know anyone named Phil. So
sometimes also we get what is it, like nebulous connections with specific terminology. What do I mean by that? Like if I say what is a good one? Well, go to the Greek thing. If someone's name is Claudius Maximus Aurelius or whatever, it's like, big, imposing. That name says something. And then over here you got Phil. And he's just Phil. And that, so in your mind, it could be, this is just every man. This is just the generic idea of a guy. It could be as simple as that.
Right. His name's not Maximo, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is Maximilian, whatever. Anyway, I take your point.
Yeah.
Phil is just a basic name, and
Yeah.
maybe that's his name because it didn't connect with anybody in my life. I don't know anyone named Phil. So maybe that is what made him the everyman.
Yep, exactly. And it can, so that's rather than this is advice or a thought experiment specific to a person that you're trying to help, and it could very well could have been this whole form. That's what's fascinating about dreams is like let's say a month or so ago, you could have been dealing with a very specific person named Phil who was having problems, and so you dreamed about it. You dreamed that Phil got turned into, but you didn't. So when you don't have that specificity, it's got to be dealing with broader concepts that are related. So,
which is cool. I think it's cool that it's a broader concept.
For sure.
And I think that's also why I haven't been able to figure out the dream yet.
Yeah. Well, that's what do I say about that? So, step one, you write them down, and as you do, because you're not going to remember them. Dreams are kind of, in a way, meant to fade. And that's why I also say dreams self-select for importance, because if you really remember stuff when they usually fade away and you feel strongly about it and there's a puzzle you're trying to tease out and you can really remember each step along the way, those are the ones you want to have a look at. Like, what am I looking at? Why is this important to me? It's hopefully we get something out of that, but by the end of this. But you managed to, this is what I was going to get to as well, is you managed to stop the execution 2 times, and a third time was coming. And we could say generically the old, magic number 3. I mean, third time's a charm, etc. It's just one of those things where it's like, it could have been 1. It's very unlikely to be 2. More likely to be 3, less likely to be 4, 5, 6, and then we hit other magic numbers like 7, and that's certainly
sure.
Long story short, you get what I'm saying on that. So this is 1, 2, 3. It's like setting it up for you've had some success getting through to these people. You've managed to make them reconsider twice, but the third time is coming, and they've now not just doubled but tripled down. They're like, look, we get it. You're right about those first 2 things, but ultimately this needs to happen, and we're going to do it. And you're arguing against it. You're not comfortable. They're like, this is too far. I'm not comfortable with this. And it could be, this thought just occurred to me, and I don't know how relevant it is, but I like to throw these out. But also the idea of sometimes you're trying to convince other people to be less judgmental or to seek less vengeance. Sometimes you're trying to encourage the person to stop torturing themselves. It's like, they're like, no, I need to do this. Well, here's a good reason not to. He's like, well, you're right, but I still need to do it. No, let me try again. Second time. Here's why you should stop torturing yourself. He's like, you're right. You're right about those first 2 things. I acknowledge it. But I'm still going to go all the way and do something harmful to myself, or self-sabotage, or all kinds of different things. So it's like, there's a lot of death sentences we give ourselves, and it's just the end of one thing and the beginning of something new sometimes, if it's not literal self-harm in that way.
Like when times where I might work with somebody and I see light and then they completely fall off and they decide that no, they're just not ready to be helped. I mean, that would be another example. For sure. And what's interesting, again, it's so true that these things in this world come in 3s and 7s so often. They just
It's just weird. They do. I'm not even claiming to understand it. Just the fact that if you pay attention, it's there. Yeah. And this is, so there's that external judgment, and some people are just not willing to forgive. There's the internal judgment too. It's like they just feel so guilty that they can't let it go. They just can't forgive them. And that's the idea of forgive yourself. It's like, okay, you tell that to a sociopath and they're like, well, I never felt guilty in the first place. Of course I forgive myself. Hey, I never did anything wrong. I'm a narcissist. That's going to get clipped. That's fine. Let's hope so. That's fantastic.
That's great material.
I think that's great material. I love it, right? I wasn't acting, not at all. Some people, but then there's the flip side of that coin where people just beat the hell out of themselves for every little thing and they can't let it go. It's like, those are the people you need to, and I think of that as the balance of what is that saying out there? My job is to comfort the disturbed and disturb the comfortable in a lot of ways. So, sometimes you want to take a person who's not reflecting on themselves and say, hey, here's a mirror. Can we talk about this? And sometimes you got to say someone who's just stuck in their own, as we were saying, shame and guilt, and say, you can't move forward until you get out of this hole. First, you got to get out of the hole. Let go of the shame and guilt. It's good. It's good for motivation. That's why I say too, is like a lot of the healing process is transforming negative emotion into positive action. Let it be. It's good that you feel terrible about failing to show up on time for your cousin's bar mitzvah or whatever. It's like, because it hurt his feelings. He's like, hey, you missed the show. Why are you late? Like, okay, I feel bad about it, but that doesn't mean you should then go do something destructive to yourself because you just leave a little earlier next time. Motivate, let your bad behavior motivate positive change. Anyway, long story short, you get that. So we did get to the point of like, all right, they've accepted your, what is it? The judgmental crowd that is enforcing this judgment has accepted, there are redeeming qualities, but this situation is bad enough to go all the way. But then, what are we doing here?
So then Phil escapes.
Yeah.
So we have the third time the hammers come down.
Yep.
Justice and said, sorry, it's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And then somehow Phil escapes. And of course, the first finger is pointed directly at me. But you helped him.
Exactly. Now that's interesting too, because let's imagine a person who doesn't want to let go of their guilt and shame, like we were saying, and they escape. They do what is what I'm trying to say? They do what they consider to be letting themselves off the hook with less than they deserve. And then sometimes they externalize that blame to the coach that's telling them it's okay to let it go. But they're uncomfortable letting it go to the point. Am I making sense? I don't know if you can phrase it differently.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, there's a bit of hating the helper going on there. It's like, I know you're right, but I don't really believe it. And I'm not really prepared to let myself off the hook, but I do it anyway. So there's like escaping from the jail is getting out of that prison, being trapped in your emotions, trapped in behavioral patterns. Perhaps.
Probably. Yeah. That would make sense.
Yeah. I'm not saying that is one idea of what it could be. Let's go there. I don't want to say that's what this means. I hate that.
No. It's just given another line of possibility.
Yes.
For me to ponder, it in
One
some
way
ways,
to look at this.
because you could look at Phil as being someone trapped within his own prison of his own ideas and beliefs or view of himself. And I've given permission to Phil to not see himself that way. But Phil's like, oh, but I'm still in this tiny little mouse jail. And then without my knowledge or anything, Phil gets out somehow. Yeah. And the whole town's at my door, like, pitchfork and torches in hand going, bring out Phil. I mean, that's basically what happens. And I'm like,
exactly.
Phil, and then I'm like, Phil escaped. And they're like, he escaped.
Right. For sure. No, they're going to look at you. Well, you're the only one. You're new in town. You're a stranger. You're the only one sticking up for him. Now, that might also relate to what you could be thinking through is how do I help someone when the people around, someone who tells me I'm having problems and the people around me are really angry and I want to start getting out of this hole, but they think I should be punished and I'm conflicted. I'm guilty. I know I did a lot of these things. Do I really deserve to forgive myself? You might be trying to think through, how do I advise this? How do I advocate for them? How do I be their attorney? How do I solve this sticky conundrum, a subset of other problems in my process? I don't know if that's making sense.
Yeah. It makes sense. I'm thinking through it. But yeah, sure. I can see that as being a potential way to interpret it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it would, and what I've done, we're not really done yet though. So, let's say they accused you, because you're friends, because you're the only person that took up for him. And then there was a reading out of the list of grievances, is what I wrote down.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So then Phil gets
captured him again, right?
They capture him, right? And so then it very quickly we go from recapture to the scene is standing in this traditional penitentiary execution room, and they got this tiny little mouse strapped to this huge human table.
Yeah,
I mean, that's the visual.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So I'm on the other side of the glass, and they're reading out all of his lists of crimes. Now I don't remember what any of them were, and they're ready to execute him.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, it's almost comical in a way.
That's exactly what I was thinking. We both laughed as soon as you see that visual, and that's probably the purpose of that visual. Is like, this is ridiculous. This is overkill. This, you're showing yourself, this is not, the mouse didn't get out and kill a bunch of people immediately, and you're like, oh well, I guess he deserved it. And now, then it wouldn't be comical at all. It'd be like, this is a dangerous animal that needs to be stopped. No, it's comical. It's all of this hullabaloo. It's a giant table and a needle for a tiny mouse strapped in there. Just absurd. This is absurd. This should not be happening. This is too far. Yeah,
exactly. But the other thing that popped into my head as well afterwards, being awake, is, why was it execution by this method? Why was it a needle? Why wasn't the punishment of feeding him to the wolves or something? Or why was he able to live? How did he live for the period of time that he escaped without, mice are pretty fragile in this world. Like, it's pretty easy to get killed if you're a mouse. I mean, you've got 3 cats running around your studio there that would happily eat a mouse, right? Yep. So, and would be able to catch one with relative ease. So how did Phil survive? He survived for some reason to be brought back and then strapped to this massive bench. I'm sorry, I still have the visual. It's
for whatever reason, he couldn't fully escape. He couldn't get out of town. He couldn't run away somewhere else. And that's might be metaphorical for the idea of we can't escape ourselves. Wherever we go, there we are. You bring your problems with you. Right. So sometimes leaving and starting over can work, but if you have all the same bad habits, you're going to repeat those negative patterns. You're going to screw up the new place. The new town's going to try and kill you too if you go to a new town. In broad strokes.
Yeah, exactly. Which is why when you then they go to push the needle, but as that is occurring, I'm having the thought in my head, standing there, thinking about the things that I've done after hearing these grievances, whatever they were, and I'm like, oh no, I've done some of those things. What are they going to lock me up?
And then I wrote down the quote. Am I good or evil? Like Phil. And where do I fall on this? And they followed through. They followed through, and you woke up angry. It says, as Phil was executed. I think, there's probably part of you that will always, because you're using such personal experience and what you've learned from it and the motivation to help others, all of it's very personal. Your whole enterprise is very personal. So everything you do and everything you advocate is probably going to be related to that. There's might be a part of you that's still struggling with letting go of some things or wondering what kind of just consequences probably should have happened as a result of some behaviors, and that you were lucky to escape it. And now you're looking at, well, what if I get into a Phil situation? What if, no matter how much anyone advocates for me, I just can't escape the consequence? And maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I shouldn't allow myself to. There's some of that.
Some guilt that is threaded through that. Yeah.
It probably just, will be with you forever, and you'll probably just revisit it. Like, I think back, I get a visceral, like a face flush and a cringy feeling when I think back on some stupid things I did. As I said, I will never tell it. I won't tell my wife, but I think about it. I'm like, God, that was just embarrassing and dumb. And why did I think that was ever going to work? It's, I think that's a normal human thing. But usually it didn't hurt anybody. Usually for most people, our embarrassing mistakes are like, you just said something stupid once and you can't believe you did that and you don't know what you were thinking, and no harm, no foul, but still maybe somebody was upset emotionally at the very least.
But isn't it amazing that you can have those thoughts? I have them as well. I can think of various times, all the way back into childhood, where I literally will cringe thinking, "Oh, I can't believe that I did that."
My face and my body does the thing. I can't stop it.
And I just thinking about it or picturing what happened. And then the likelihood that anyone else remembers what occurred is so slim.
Oh yeah.
Yet it continues to have that massive of an impact on us to this day. And I mean, we're not alone. Everybody has these.
Oh, for sure.
And it's interesting. Why do we hold on to a moment like that? What is there has to be a purpose. And I oftentimes try to ask myself, well, why is this thought still a thought? Why am I still holding on to this? I'm just ever so slightly going to go on a segue just for a split second, because last night I have this recurring set of dreams that involve the owner of the first business that I worked at. It was a small local chain of pharmacies, and I worked myself up from like a stock boy to being the assistant manager and then the head buyer for the company before I left shortly after I started college. And so the owner had I learned so much from him. He was, just this really talented, smart individual. And he took me under his wing, and he just, like, any question I had about business or anything, and I always relate back to it. And so he shows up in my dreams all the time, like constantly. He's been dead. He's been dead for 5 years, yet for some reason he's like still shows up in my dreams, like, and I always say, whatever happened in that time period, in those 4.5 years that I worked there, has impacted everything in my life, because it shows up at least twice a week. I'll have a dream that involves it.
That is very cool. That's good. Now, a lot of us don't realize the exemplars or the heroes, in a way, we look up to, the people we've learned. And a lot of times it is conscious. Hey, you remember the guy, you remember he taught you a lot of things. And for you, it's a little more close to the surface in terms of how broadly, deeply, comprehensively, he influenced your life by just being a good role model. And for a lot of folks, that's their dad or their mom or a mentor, like
he was truly my first business mentor that taught me, like, well, this is what you'd have to do if you wanted to start a company. This is how it would have to be. Oh no, you would have to hire employees and do things. Like, he taught me all of that. And I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. That's all I've ever done. I've worked for myself, basically, aside from 2 short stints at large companies, but I couldn't handle it.
Now his name wasn't Phil, right?
No.
Okay. You probably would have thought of that. I just had to ask.
No. Yeah. No. His name was Bill, actually, not Phil, but close. But he was a super great guy. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is that he comes into these dreams as the applier of knowledge. And it happened last night. And I don't remember all the specifics. I'd have to go look at my notes. I don't have them in front of me, but he showed up in this dream, and basically was suggesting that maybe we look at the problem this way. And I was like, oh, that's a great idea. And then immediately that's what I set out and do. And the dream was a success, and I woke up. But it's just wild that and I find it so fascinating that someone that from my life when I was a teenager, 30 years ago,
because you probably had some other more recent mentors.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tons.
Yeah. And some that I would think are more impactful, but evidently not. Because otherwise, those people would show up in my dreams, right?
Maybe so. And they might, or it might be a case of, like, begin at the beginning, start with the basics. What's the foundation of everything? So definitely, if someone helped you lay that foundation, you'd probably think back to them a lot and say, well, what would Bill do? How would he approach this? What would he tell me I should do in this situation? You just tapping that well, like going back to the well for more inspiration or
exactly.
Guidance.
But sometimes it's not even on things that he ever would have taught me, and that's what makes it so fascinating. He's like this guide that has become a part of my dreamscape that shows up and provides that knowledge. He's he's like the knowledge panel or something.
Well, there's two examples I'll give too, which is, this is not, I won't say it's not as uncommon as people think, but that's the general idea. Is like, this happens more often than you might think, even if it is not common. One was a book, it is ABC Book 6, Studies in Dreams by Mrs. Mary Arnold Forster. And this is one of the earliest books I could find written about lucid dreaming. And so she talks about her experiments in her studying her own dreams and conducting studies in her dreams and studying dreams in general. It's a nice, clever, almost triple entendre title. Long story short on that, she had dream guides that sometimes they were like invisible fuzzy things, and sometimes they looked like her father. But sometimes it was not like, so if it looked like her father or brother or what, I can't remember who it was exactly. But it wasn't that person, and she knew it wasn't that person. She knew it was the dream guide, whatever category. So there's two. Okay. The second thing was how, Carl Jung, he would do waking meditative dream states where he would consult a spiritual guide or whatever it was in his own imagination he called Philemon. And so he would have conversations with this person and said, what would Philemon say? Let's have that thought experiment as a kind of waking dream meditative experience. This was like, and what he was assigning to it was, okay, if this is a beneficial mentor, a deep source of wisdom and knowledge, what would the exemplar, the avatar of beneficial wisdom and knowledge say to me about this situation? So you could, you have this guy and you really, he was good to you. He gave you a chance. You recognized your efforts and your promotions. He gave you good advice that worked, all of these wonderful things. And then later on you can say, and as you do say, he's not in current dreams, he's not talking about anything he ever taught me. Now but he's still giving me good advice. So now he's transformed from Bill and all the things Bill actually did to avatar of good advice and wisdom who will show up and put on Bill's face and say, yeah, remember this guy that helped you? I'm here to help you too. So I think that, okay, all of that to get to that point. I think that's what he is now. Like, it isn't actually Bill anymore. It's something. He's something more.
It's not, but it's really fascinating to me. Anyway, I digress.
That's all right. Both of us. This whole episode is a big digression. That's what we do.
I took us on that journey.
No, that's okay. I think it's all relevant. Like, I tell people too, don't hesitate to tell me if you're not feeling it. If it's like I rattle a doorknob, it doesn't come open, we move to the next one. Doesn't matter. I'm happy to be wrong if it gets us where we're going. We can rule out things too. But the other side of it is, interrupt me anytime. I just ramble until I can inspire thoughts for you or give you something useful that makes sense. So if you go, wait, stop. I just had a thought. Please stop me. So that's definitely. Now, I think that was a worthwhile tangent, because why would you wake up angry? It's because you perhaps tried to come in and serve a similar purpose of, saving someone from themselves in a way, or from unnecessary, excessive, vengeful judgment, and it didn't work. And you were upset by that, and right, reasonably so. I wouldn't, I don't say whether emotions are they're always real, but they're sometimes reasonable and sometimes not. It's like, should you be that angry? Maybe not. Should you be that upset? Well, this is life and death. Literally, the mouse was put to death and you're like, this is too far. So all of that.
It's like I tried really hard to make something happen almost like I was trying to, not only was I trying to help Phil, but I was also trying to help the townfolk to recognize that perhaps they had become vengeful. Perhaps they weren't looking at this in the right light any longer. And that, and then my own reflective right before I wake up to think about the things that I had done that could put me where Phil was.
Yeah.
And even though I don't remember this in my dream, I can see where my natural conscious mind's application it goes immediately to, and how many of the townfolk are just as equally two-faced.
For sure. Yeah. And that's a complicated dynamic as well. It's like sometimes the bloodthirsty mob wants attention off themselves. They want it on this guy. They can say scapegoating. They can say, I'm better than this because, look, I want to punish him, even if I don't want to talk about this stuff.
It's deflection. It's not.
Yeah, deflection.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That too. And I mean, it's as we were saying, it's reasonably upsetting that you would go in with a purpose and fail, and you feel bad on like at least a couple of different levels. But the idea that you failed the person. And an unjust outcome has been obtained. You failed the people because you couldn't convince them that they were going too far. And in some ways, you maybe feel like you failed yourself of like, what am I lacking that I couldn't pull this off? What else could I have done?
Right. What did I miss? What did I miss?
What did I not say? What did I not see?
Yeah, what did I not see that I couldn't convey? Did I say the wrong words that didn't show the right things?
Yeah.
And those are some things that I do struggle with sometimes in the work that I do, is that, like sometimes I feel like the words don't hit necessarily right, and then I have to back up and go at it a different direction to try to, because words are interesting, what in because they can frame an idea in such a way that make it either too complex or too beyond comprehension for one person,
or
yet
too
another
vague,
person might,
and they're just not getting it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
like, what am I not saying?
this is all fuzzy. And so did I not do my best work? And I'm hard on myself. I'm a perfectionist. I do strive for doing things right and doing them properly, but it hasn't kept me from doing a lot of wrong things, right? Because I'm human.
Sounds like you
And
might be a little tortured by your own drive, as we were saying.
yeah,
That's how it is. No, that's how it is for sure. And that's
Yeah.
okay. And again, I would hesitate to say to someone like you, don't worry about it. Be more like me. Nah, you're not me. You're not me. And that's okay. You get your own thing going. And I'm not even trying to tell you it's good or bad necessarily. I think that's something you're going to discover.
It just is,
It is. Yeah.
But at the same time, even though I am driven to do things, I'm also the person that will say, like, you know what? I'm going to take a break right now, and I'll just disappear for 4 hours and leave all of my devices here and just go into the wilderness.
Yeah.
And
you got to
and
know
everyone's like,
when your cup is full, and you got to let it drain a little bit. You got to know. Yeah.
and it's so wild in today's world. It is almost impossible to disappear like that, because then when you do, and I had an instance of this just a couple of weeks ago, where someone literally went into panic mode and thought that like either I'd done something to myself or I'd been in a car accident. I'm like, It's been 4 hours. Like, like seriously?
Yeah.
I mean, like,
do we really have to start texting everybody? FYI, sometimes I leave my phone at home and go for a walk, and you're not going to be able to reach me. That's becoming uncommon. People want, like, he didn't get back to me for a whole 5 minutes. What's going on? Why?
Yeah.
Why did it take so long? Maybe I was watching a movie. I mean, maybe I was on the toilet and I didn't want to talk to someone with the echo. Yeah.
More than that. And it comes into the reflective state that we do get in our dreams. And it is one of the last places that we truly can escape this world and be reflective and think. And I wish more people could remember their dreams like I do. I think it's a gift that it has been given to me. And I'm so glad that I have it, but it's only a gift if you allow yourself to reflect on it and see and try to figure out what it means and how, because if you, and I'm not saying that I'm right about this, but I personally feel that every dream that I have has solved a challenge that I feel that I have, but I maybe consciously don't know I have. It's like this, I'm unaware that this is challenging me under the surface. And so that's what these dreams are for me, and that's why I write them down. And I know a lot of people think that that's funny and crazy, but and a lot of the dreams are just absolutely nonsensical if you would read them out to most people. I'm like, oh, this means this. And they're like, how do you get that from this? I'm like, well, it doesn't really matter how I got it. It solved a challenge that I was trying to solve.
For sure. Yeah. And I put them into two broad categories of, like, sometimes they are problem solving specific. They give you an answer. Happens all the time. Sometimes they are observational. What you're trying to do is explain what you're seeing to yourself before you even get to, okay, now what do I do about it? How do I feel about that? A lot of dreams can just be, let me clarify the problem without even getting to an answer yet. And this actually might be one of those kind of dreams where you're trying to clarify a problem rather than give yourself an answer, because the answer was, I woke up angry and I failed. That's not an answer. That's a problem.
No.
That's what I'm looking at, is like,
I'm still searching for the solution. Yet what you've helped me do today is, like, I think that the greatest thing that we've discovered today, or you've helped me discover today, is the fact that this is most likely reflective to the work that I'm doing now, and the intertwining of what I see in other people when I'm working with them and my own past, and trying to weave myself in as the person who has walked into their life. So if I suddenly have been hired to help somebody, I am the new person in town, in the town. The
Yeah.
town is their group of people.
Absolutely.
And suddenly I'm in a situation where they're counting on me and my guidance and counsel to help them navigate the challenge that they're in. And sometimes maybe the things that we work on together doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, then it could potentially unravel. And I haven't quite yet figured out how to deal with that unraveling. Sure. I don't know. I'm like totally going on a mind search as I'm talking out loud.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic. I all of this has been worth it to get to the last minute of everything you said, just to help you describe the situation to yourself. Now that you're seeing it a little more clearly, you can go, okay, what do I do with that? What do I do when I burst onto the scene, new in town, I'm here to advocate for them, and it doesn't work. It doesn't, whatever I'm trying to help them with doesn't work. How do I pick up the pieces from that? How do I maintain a positive relationship with them? Do we build that into the recursive cycle? Like, maybe it is referring back to, observe, behavior, execute, and trying to say, okay, maybe one way to let yourself off the hook a bit, or to incorporate it in a reasonable manner, is let them know ahead of time. You and me, we're going to collaborate on solutions, and we're going to give them a try, and they might not always work. We are fallible. There are things but we're always going to learn something. This is what I would say is, as long as you learn something from failure, it's not that bad. If you learn absolutely nothing because you don't even care, that's bad. Right. But if you tried, bonus points. It didn't work, but you didn't give up, bonus points. You review and look for improvement, bonus points. Bonus is the wrong way, but positive versus negative. So maybe building that into, what do we do? What's that? The Batman movie. Why do we fall down, Master Bruce? To learn how to pick ourselves back up again. That is probably those leaning in that. That's what I would say. That's what if I were to give advice, which I don't, and this is not, consult your doctor. But that's what I would say. Probably that's the maybe one pathway I might suggest for you to explore. We'll put it that way.
Yeah. No. It's good. This is giving me some new direction to ponder and pull apart the rest of this dream. I think I'm closer to solving it than I was an hour ago. So I'm like super happy and excited about that.
That is fantastic. If there's one thing we like on Dreamscapes, it's new directions. And you're just about out of time. I got to get you out of here. We'll end on that joke. That's a good one. You feel we've gotten everything we can of it. You don't have additional questions. I'd like to give people the last word. If you do.
I mean, like, I'm super happy. Thank you so much for walking me through that and guiding me through some new possibilities and new ponderings. But I think that the most important deal picking all of these apart is to have an open mind, because anything that is being suggested, it can sound off at first, but even as you were saying, I was like, it can't be that. I had a couple of instances of that, but then once I thought about it a little bit more, I was like, well, hold on a second.
What if it is? Yeah.
What if it is?
Just
and then if it is that, then these other pieces fall into place, and the more pins that you fall into the lock, the easier that you're going to find that key that unlocks the whole story. So.
Oh yeah, and song lyric which pops into my head frequently just came back. It's you want to hold on loosely, but don't let go. If you cling too tightly, you're going to lose control. I love that.
Yep. It's a great one.
I love
great
music.
song. Great
song.
Well,
that's why I'm trying to turn all that poetry into music. I'm going to go on another tangent here. Let's do this. Let's see. This has been our friend Massimo Rigotti. He's a high-performance coach, public speaker, and author of Flavors of Confidence, Sober Method. You can find him at sobermethod.com and at Sober Method on, or is it at Sober? I wrote at Sober Method.
At Sober Method.
Okay, gotcha.
On all the socials.
All the socials. There we go. And my mouth is horribly dry before I launch into my... Not many cats on the screen today. This is unusual. Bubba's sleeping. Anyway, I'm going on another tangent here. For my part, would you kindly like, share, and subscribe? Tell your friends. Always need more volunteer dreamers. I do video game streams Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific. Most days. Sometimes I take Thursday, Fridays off. if I finish a game. This episode brought to you in part by ABC Book 10, The Witch's Dream Book, a kind of a pop culture occult work out of 1885. Fantastic there. Lots of fun. It has one footnote, and I'll tell you what that is. Do not eat or drink any recipe in this book. That is the one footnote, and it is on every page. So, yes, these are not for human consumption. This is for entertainment purposes only. Long story short on that. You can find all this and more at BenjaminTheDreamWizard.com, including downloadable MP3s of this very podcast. And if you would head on over to BenjaminTheDreamWizard.locals.com, it's free to join, attached to my Rumble account. One of the best ways to get in contact with me if you want to do a dream interpretation. And that is enough out of me. Massimo, thank you for being here. It's been a very fun talk.
Hey, thank you so much. It was great.
Good deal. And everybody out there, thank you for listening. We'll see you next time.